Yeah, I confess, Father, I confess, 'cause I've been living wrong.
Hey guys, what's going on? Today is install day. We're going to be installing the Sparco Street Edition Fighter seat into the Harsh Tymes DC build. So there are going to be some things you need to know, be aware of, and tools that are going to be required. First, the essentials. You're going to definitely need a bracket, Sparco bracket preferably, which you can get at our website. You're going to need the slider kit, which you can also get at our website, and you're going to need a spacer kit, which is going to become the tricky part. Aside from that, the tools you'll need, and we've adjusted this list to kind of compensate for you guys being at home and not in the shop. So we're going to use some different things which a shop may not use. So you're going to need some wood and some painter's tape. That's the tricky part. It's going to require a little modification for the slider kit. You're going to need a 12mm, 17mm open-end wrench, and a ratchet and a socket. And of course, you'll need some Allen wrenches to install the hardware onto the seat. So although this is a bottom mount seat, very similar to the R100, which is the very economic brand coming into Sparco, which we had priorly into the Harsh Tymes DC. So be aware you can use the same brackets and slider kit, although they do require a little bit of modification. The bracket is fine, the sliders do. You also need to be aware you're dealing with a fiberglass shell when you're working with this seat. If you drop that seat hard enough, either you're going to scratch it or you're going to ruin the seat altogether. And may I mind you, that right there is near a $700 racing seat. So I'm pretty sure you don't want to ruin $700. So let's get into this, show you guys what to do, have some fun, make this car look a little bit more beautiful. All right. So as I said, we got our wood. Two different pieces you'll need to do the job to modify the sliders. Got our painter's tape. What we want to do is protect the finish that are on the sliders so we don't ruin it and expose bare metal. We got our ratchet, socket, our open-end wrenches, our Allen wrenches. Here's the slider kit. Now mind you, this is not in the packaging, of course, because I said priorly we had the R100s installed, and the same hardware that works for the R100s will work for the Fighter bottom mount seat. So this is our slider kit from the previous install. This is also the same passenger side Sparco bracket from the install. And what we'll do is we'll put the part numbers down in the description. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Help support us so we can keep bringing you guys installation reviews and tips. Here's the hardware as far as for the socket head bolts. We have some lock nut bolts which are going to attach the sliders to the bottom of the seat. And we have the spacer kit. The spacer kit is definitely required, and although you get the spacer kit to install these sliders on the bottom of the Fighter, you still have to modify the handle, and that's what we're going to get into. Now, I've seen some handle modification jobs on YouTube. I think that we've kind of developed a little bit better way to do it without extreme or specific tools, using the wood and the painter's tape, which you'll see how and what kind of angle this gives us. Most videos that we see, they're angled one way, so the handle usually dips down. But the way we've come up with, using the two pieces of wood, it gives you a little angle, it dips down, and it comes straight. So you still have a handle that projects straight out from the seat, which gives you a better look. It also doesn't make the slider look like it's been broken or bent. So we'll get into that later. Like I said, we'll put the part numbers for the brackets, the slider kit, and the spacer, and the hardware kit. So when you guys go to www.wolfpackperformance.net, you'll know what you're looking for. All right, so let's get into looking at this seat. Here's the Fighter seat that we have, still in the packaging, and it will remain in the packaging. And the reason for that is you don't want to ruin your fabric. You're going to have to take this seat and turn it over, and you're going to have this on any surface while you're working on the bottom mount to go ahead and install the sliders. So it's best that you leave it in the plastic until you completely install the bracket and the sliders and you're ready to go ahead and put it in the car. It might even be safe, depending on your environment, to leave the wrapping on until you actually get the seat in the car and then go ahead and mount it up. Now, there's some different things that you guys might encounter depending on your harness system. We'll also get into that later on in the video as we go ahead and install the Fighter seat. But why don't we temporarily take this wrapping off so you guys can get a good look at it. So let's get this covering off. Put a piece of cardboard down to protect the bottom of the seat. Like we said, it's a fiberglass back, top to bottom on the back shell. So right off, you may notice the lumbar pads, and we'll get a closer look at those. That's considerably different than the R100s. You got I gotta look up the technical term for this, but it's almost like it almost feels like ostrich. It's a very grippy material, feels very comfortable. It's beaded, so it's different than here. You still got your ports, or openings, or windows for your harnesses, so it does accept a 4-point harness system. And here you have a leg support, and it seems like this comes up, so Sparco may offer different options as far as color variation. We definitely know they offer different pads for the lumbar. I think they come in black, red, and blue, so those are things that you can change. But overall, the Fighter seat is just a beautiful looking seat. Not to mention, we've already previously installed the driver's seat, and I can tell you, it is far way easier to get in and out of the vehicle. And once you're in, it just hugs you and keeps you sturdy. It makes you feel very secure, although not tight. So this seat is a medium to large fitment. So anybody within that category, what you can do is look at the Sparco fitting list, and it'll tell you, try to give you a general idea of what size person is good for certain seats. So now that we look over that, let's get a little bit closer look of the seat so you guys can check out some of the details that I'm talking about here, and then we'll get into actually installing the hardware and the brackets on here. So here you get a little closer look at the lumbar supports. You have one both left and right, and these are detachable. Here you can see the change of variation of the fabrics I was talking about earlier, how this one is beaded kind of like ostrich skin. Then you have your normal material, your bottom ports there for your lap belts, and then your support for underneath on your leg. It also has a Sparco embroidered on it, as well as you'll see on the windows down there. Sparco is also in there. So they did a good job branding, and they did a good job on placement. You also have a pad here that seems to might be removable. We haven't tried it yet, but that's something that we'll explore at a later date. And you also have your Sparco embroidered up top at the headpiece. So let's go ahead and go around back, do a walk around real quick. And you'll see the fiberglass shell backing, nice and smooth. Now keep in mind, this is easy to scratch this finish. You really want to keep it protected, all right? And when it's scratched, it necessarily doesn't look too bad because nobody sees the back of your seat, but it's something that you'll definitely know is there and something that you probably won't want to deal with. Now, if you don't have a workbench, the best thing to do is do it on the floor. Or if you have a recliner, because this is a new seat, it's not soiled, it's not gonna mess it up. You can take it, face it upside down on the recliner, have the bottom of the seat facing up towards you, work on it there. Use the floor, definitely keep the protective covering on it, and maybe even a piece of cardboard, or use your workbench. So now that we went over that, let's get started. We have the seat protecting covering still on. We have the bottom side facing up, all right? So that's how we're gonna get started on this. Now mind you, as you're installing these sliders, like so, you have to keep in mind the orientation of the seat. Now, I don't know if some of you guys have been in a car with incorrectly installed sliders, but if you've ever been in one and you realize that you had to push down on the lever to adjust the seat, that is incorrect. You're supposed to be able to pull up on it. It gives you the proper leverage, and it's more comfortable to adjust the seat, disengage the locking system to go back and forth. So we have to keep that in mind as we have this seat face down, the correct orientation of operation. So when you grab your slider, one thing that you could do to check yourselves is you know that this lever, and if you don't know, I'm telling you, this lever faces in towards the middle of the seat. Another thing you need to do to check to see which side will be mounted to the bottom of the seat is push your lever down. Now pushing it down towards the seat means that in the upright orientation, you'll be pulling up to disengage, which is what we want. If you find yourself pushing down and that doesn't work, and you're facing the inside of the seat and you can't push down to adjust, and you find yourself having to pull up towards you with the seat in this underside position, that's incorrect, because when you put the seat in the car and it's upright, that means you'll have to push the lever down to adjust the seat, and that's a pain in the ass. So these face in towards the middle, the silver lever, and push down to find out which side goes installed on the seat. What we want to do is push this lever down, use the workbench, and get this even while we're going ahead and installing it right here on the seat, because we don't want to end up cutting or messing up our fabric prematurely. So what you do is push down on the lever like so, put a little pressure on the slider. It's probably better to go this way. And it should collapse just like that. Be careful it doesn't bite your finger, because it will. And we want to go ahead and go a little bit further down. Make sure it clicks and locks like so, and that'll be good. So we got about an even amount of distance on both sides of the slider. Now we want to put it in the correct orientation. I'm going to check again, so I'm going to push down on this lever so I'm sure that it's going to be proper when I install it, and that tells me that I put this on this side of the seat. So we want to go ahead and check. Now, as I said before, this is exactly why you will need the spacer kit. And this is the spacer kit. You'll need this because this slider cannot mount directly to the bottom of the seat. It needs to be raised so that the slider and the handle can clear the lip of the seat. So what we'll do is we'll move the slider up and down so that we can access the holes on the other side after we put the spacers on and checked to make sure that it's gonna clear, so that maybe we don't have to add another washer or so. And then we'll go ahead and put the bolts in. So let's go ahead, grab these spacers. This spacer part number will be in the description below, and some of those spacer kits may change depending on the seat, whether it's a bottom or side mount, so keep that in mind. There will be notes attached to those seats in the product section of our website. So let's just take out 2 spacers, that's all we need because we're only doing one side at a time. Take out 2 bolts. So we got 2 bolts, 2 spacers. So what you're gonna do is, you're gonna put your spacer on here. You're gonna take your slider, put it like so, on top of the spacer, then add your bolt, tighten it down. So let's go ahead and adjust this slider so that we can access these mounting points. So we're gonna go ahead, now that we have the socket head bolt and the spacer installed, we're gonna take our Allen wrench, which I believe this is a number 6, and we're just gonna go ahead and snug. And if you see, we're using hand power for all of this because I don't wanna strip anything, I don't wanna cross thread anything, I don't wanna ruin a $700 seat, let alone who wants to ruin a $300 seat. I mean, it's $300 that you pay. So just snug it until you feel the slider just slightly lift, all right? And that'll help us get a little leverage here so we can go ahead and press this down and adjust this slider up. So let's push down and keep sliding. It's gonna be a little rough sometimes because it's new and you're not probably at this position putting 150 pounds of pressure on it. So you might reach a little resistance just as you saw I did there. I tried a couple of different ways just to try to keep my hands out the way. Finally got in there, used the bottom side of my palm, pressed up. So just keep in mind, you don't want to get bit. Now, this is the part I was telling you guys about, that we're gonna do this a little bit different from regular install. We're gonna take the spacer still, and we're still gonna use the bolts that came with the spacer kit. But what we're gonna do is, we're gonna throw a washer on with this bolt. And the reason being is, most people lean back, which puts more pressure on the front side of that seat to keep it down, to keep you from falling back. Mind you, this seat does not have an adjustable lumbar support. It is a bucket seat. So we're gonna add a washer in there just to add that extra level of firmness and security. Drop it in there along with the spacer. Slide your spacer in over the mounting hole, line it up. Being careful not to scratch your finish. Not that anybody's gonna see the bottom of the seat, but still, you'll know it's there. Go ahead and put your Allen wrench in and start hand snugging down. So at this point, you have both spacers installed, both bolts installed. Now, it's pretty safe to say you can go ahead and start tightening down one side and then shift this down, shift the slider rail down, tighten the other side. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, tighten it up. Now mind you, there's some access holes here at the top and bottom of the slider piece. So what you can do is you can come back, and it's a lot easier to adjust now, and just go down until this hole and it locks in right over the bolt, an easy access point. Put your Allen wrench down in there and tighten this one up. Now you don't want to gorilla it, you just want to tighten it until it stops. And I'm not putting a torque wrench on there. My hand and my wrist is a calibrated torque wrench, by the way. But I'm putting about as much pressure on there as I believe is necessary to secure the seat without any harm or danger coming to myself or anybody else. This is the passenger seat, and I don't mind riding solo, so keep in mind I might not be exactly caring about your safety. I'm just playing. So let's go ahead and tighten this bottom one up as much as we tighten the top. Now mind you that you are going to get pressure on both sides with tightening, so you need to be aware of that. So when you come down here and tighten this one up, you need to go back up top and check and make sure that you didn't get any extra gap in there you need to close as you were tightening either side. This side feels pretty secure, so once again I'm going to shift this down, lock it. I'm going to check this one again, and I did get a little movement. Now it's locked tight. So we've done this side. You're going to repeat these same steps on this side, and after that it's time to install the bracket. Go ahead and line these up, make sure your holes and your slots match up, and like I said, we're going to give ourselves clearance on this side of the console, so we're going to slide a little bit this way. So we'll go ahead, come in here, put our washer on, put our nut on, hold the socket and bolt while holding the bracket. Go ahead and finger tighten that up, and it's in. We're not gonna go super tight right now. Remember, we have to put all the hardware in, and also that'll give us an idea how we need to adjust this bracket. So next, while holding the bracket in place, grab your next set of hardware. It becomes easier as you get more points mounted. Now you don't have to worry about holding the bracket, but you do have to shift it down so that you can go ahead and access the bottom portion to get that hardware in. And you'll notice that yes, these are covered up, but it's still easier to move. Just push down on the tabs, but now you notice you kind of have to move both sides so you can get things done. And actually, you know what might be a lot easier? Like, let's just stop here for a second and put the handle on, which will give us a lot easier access to these levers. So let's backtrack for a second, put this lever on, and then that allows us to adjust up and down a lot easier. So we're going to show you guys how to do the lever before we actually get into installing this bracket completely. Okay, so here's the point we were talking about earlier, where we're going to need to modify the handle for the sliders. This handle is pretty much straight, so that's the problem. And if it's straight, what's gonna happen is you're not gonna be able to pull up on it and adjust the seat because it's gonna be pinned in. So we have to add an angle in here to give us some clearance room so that we can do that. So this is where the wood comes in, so hopefully we don't do any damage to the handle. Although it is pretty much out of view, we still wanna try it. We wanna try our best not to damage anything. We have the painter's tape to protect the finish. So I'm gonna give you a rough through before we even get into it, before we start banging on things. What you wanna do is, you'll see you got two bends here going into your 90s. That's pretty much where you wanna start from, just in front of that, all right? Because it's pretty hard to get a bend on top of a bend. So you already have a bend coming here to 90 it out to connect to the levers. So to bend this area, it's possible that we could get what might be commonly called as a wrinkle, which would ruin the integrity of this, and we could end up cracking it. So we wanna come just out in front of that to give us a new tubed area that has not been bent yet, and put our bend there. This is where the painter tape comes in. We're gonna tape it down. It also helps keep it in place. You will need two people for this job. All right, this is not a one-person job. So lucky for you, the person that has to do the other job doesn't have to be smart at all. They just have to do what you tell them to do, which is stand there. Most people are pretty good at standing there watching. So that's a pretty awesome job, and it makes them feel like they helped you with your build. So preferably, probably pick your wife or your girlfriend so they can say, hey, I helped them with the car. Plus it involves them that way when they think about gift ideas. You get included in that. And then what's gonna happen, we're gonna put another piece of wood across here. And this is where the person will stand, helping support this. So let's get that piece of wood. And you wanna get something that's gonna be nice and sturdy. And you'll lay this piece of wood here, allowing them to stand directly on top of this, sandwiching the handle. You'll take this other big block of wood and you'll put it right on here. And what you're gonna do, you're gonna take this sledgehammer and you're gonna bang away on this wood, creating a bend in this lever. Some people might say, how far? My suggestion is go ahead, have the person stand on it, start banging, keeping in mind watching the metal, and take it off time to time and do an eye check. When you get a nice little slight bend in there, I mean, it's not gonna even be 30 degrees. You don't even need that much bend in there. So we're talking about maybe 10 degrees or so, just to give us clearance so we can access that lever, and this handle will give us the amount of spacing to allow us to unlock the mechanism to adjust the seat. That's all we need. We don't need anything excessive. And the good thing about doing it like this is we're gonna get a pretty neat angle, you'll see after I finish, where it's not just gonna go and angle down, just kind of gonna angle and then come back straight out. So I'm gonna go ahead, get me a volunteer to stand on this piece of wood, and then I can blame them if it doesn't work. Like I said, let's check and see. And we do have some angle in there. And let's get just a little bit more. Now mind you, you don't have to worry about which side is which, because this thing can flip side either way. It's ambidextrous, so it doesn't matter. You just need to go ahead and make sure the angle's where you need it when you put it on the seat. So let's go ahead and give it one more whack. And step off of that. All right, we just finished modifying the handle. Cleaning it off with a little denatured alcohol to get the adhesive off. Pretty much no blemishes. We've got a little minor area here, but that's okay. Now I want you to pay attention and see this angle. You see how we have the drop down and then the flare back out to straighten it out. So that way we don't have a consistent angle on the handle, because actually what else will happen is this bracket, when the seat's adjusting back and forth, it will actually run into this handle and then cause a binding issue. So you need that, in this case, I'll say in this case, you need that angle and then that flare back out to get that straight orientation, all right? So let's go ahead and install this handle on and see what we got. So this was not the right way. Remember what I said, either side you start on is good, because when you get here, you can just flip it. You know, these sides are not like mandated to one side or the other, so just flip it till you get what you need. Get in there and make sure you get each lever in the hole. And then you'll see it's close here, but don't worry about it, because you still have an inch of space on each side to go ahead and keep going back. And just go ahead and make sure the lever is in there. Going over to the other side and slide it on. You gotta make sure that both sides are pretty much up, and then there you go. We have our angle. So now we're pretty much straight here with the adjustment when it comes back up into the neutral position. So we're pretty much straight here all the way up into this edge. So we should be pretty good when this bracket slides down. And we have the spacing we need here to clear the edge, the lip of the seat on the bottom side. So when we press this down, we should have pretty good range of motion, and we do. We have close to about, I'd say, an inch or so of clearance. So when we press this down, we want to go ahead and push this bracket down, and do this very slowly. Don't go and just jab this bracket down and run into your hand. We're still testing here. So just kind of pop it and let it slide down and come back up into the neutral position when it locks. And there we go. We're good. And there you go. Add your washer in, and then your nylon nut on one side. Next set of hardware. And you do the same thing on this side. Now you're gonna have to, on these, you're gonna need your Allen and you're gonna need your socket. So you can hold one side stationary and then tighten the other side. So now what you want to do is, like I said, you need to go ahead and adjust, decide how, check the angle of the seat. So what we got here for these nylon locking nuts is we have a 13, and then as before we got the number 6 Allen. We'll just go in here and lock the Allen side, and then make sure we got our ratchet tightened. You don't need any special ratchet. You got a pretty good amount of space to work here, so having something that's got fine clicks is not necessary. And remember, we're just going to snug it. We're not going to tighten it all the way, because we still need to make sure we get everything locked where we need it, and then secure everything. So let's just go ahead and kick it over as much as we can, and we'll lock it in there and then start tightening all 4 corners. And then we are done putting the bracket on, and we can go ahead and start checking for the car. You see, got all 4 corners in. Bracket is nice and snug, pushed over. Really no major blemishes. Got a small one here, and that might happen, but that's not a big deal. That's the bottom side of the seat anyway. It did happen, but hey, it's better than having it totally screwed up. And as you can see here from side view, the spaces are in there. And that's how it's gonna look when it's finished. All right, before we bring the seat in, you wanna get in the car, make sure that anything that can be done while the seat is out has been done, whether you wanna vacuum under there, because that's a pain in the ass area to vacuum once the seat's in. Or make sure all your modules out, especially if you have an airlift controller for your suspension. Make sure that is out of the way. Put it on the console or just toss it over there on the driver's seat. And then go ahead and do a check of all the bolt head sizes so you can get the exact tools you need, so you don't have to come back and forth too much for those. So for this job, we'll need a 17mm, a 19mm. We also have a 12, and we have ratchet and socket, and it might even require us to go ahead and use an extension on this one, so we might have to get that. We'll get that as we go ahead and get the seat and get that in here. So this is the part we've been waiting for, to get this seat in, see how it looks, see how it feels. Hopefully fitment is correct. If not, we'll have to backtrack some and go ahead and start from there, but hopefully we got everything straight as we were going through it the first time, and everything will go okay. So we're on our way. We're getting there. So we got the shop vac. Go ahead and throw that in there. Go ahead and get some of this stuff cleaned up while we got the seat out. Probably would be good to plug up power. Alright, now that we've got our seat in the car, still got the plastic wrapping on, this has got to come off. Already washed our hands, removed any grease we had from the sliders, so now we can kind of safely handle this seat unless you touch something else that has a lot of dirt or debris, especially dust-type dirt. You don't want to mess up your embroidery, alright? So, let's go ahead and pull this protective covering off. We'll still hold on to it. Let's go ahead and chunk it in the garage or safely up under the car. Slow enough. Now remember what I said, you don't want to go bolting the seat in just yet. It's a lot easier to put your harnesses back in and be able to move the seat as freely as you need to be. So we have 3-point harnesses. The rear harness, the rear bolt section was never disconnected. Just the 2 side lat mounts were disconnected. So we're going to bring the harnesses through these aisleways here, come on down and start bolting those in. We'll go ahead and do the pestering side first, which is the side near the console, and then we'll do the door side next, which is the easiest. Then after that, we'll go ahead and bolt the seat in, and then we're done. Sparco harnesses, of course. It's the first one. Now we just got to do the next one. Bring the mounting point through, pull the rest through. And go ahead and untangle anything on the back so it's nice and flush. There we go. We pulled the harnesses through. Next step, connect the bolt points. take it through here, make sure everything's flat where it needs to be. Take it through this hole, and we're gonna take that, the bolt in, slide the locking nut in there, and it's a tight fit, but it's in there, it's in there. And finally, there is a guide. Finally got it to catch. I thought that one was gonna be a pain in the ass. This one was the pain in the ass. There's a conduit over here that your wires run through. It's a little difficult, creates a raise. Wasn't bad on the driver's side, it was bad on the passenger side. So I guess just be aware of that. Now we get this harness strapped in. All right, we tighten up our last bolt. Get this seat in. And after that, we're done. It is installed. And check this one over here. Beneath, seats installed. It's a done deal. Definitely was a task, but it looks great. So I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope it helps you out. If you have any questions, you can reach us at wolfpackperformance@gmail.com or at the website wolfpackperformance.net. You guys take it easy.